Thank you for joining us. Today we have an exciting webinar on LinkedIn Social Selling Index with speaker Rich Toland, who presented at our IDCFA owners meeting this past June and was overwhelmingly asked to come back. So we're excited to have Rich this morning, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
That's great. Thanks, Cheryl. Hey, everybody. This is Rich Toland from LinkedIn. I'm excited to be back presenting today. Many of you I've met and have gotten a chance to know. If we haven't, great to meet you. Thank you for coming in and spending time with us today. So we will be talking about LinkedIn Social Selling Index today, which is really a framework for selling success on LinkedIn. Before we get started, I will put this out there that there's a bunch of information that we're going to go through. I will be putting it together, in fact, with more material than I'm even covering today. I'm more than happy to send this out to anybody that wants a copy. There are some things that I will be talking about in general today that I won't be giving very specific direction on how to do. It's a little more tactical than I'd like to get today. However, as we go through the presentation, I may mention a thing here or there, and we'll have some added information in the PowerPoint that, again, I'm more than happy to share. So just send me an email, rtolan@linkedin.com, and of course, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I love my Dale Carnegie network and always looking to grow that. And speaking of Dale Carnegie, for those of you who know me and got to meet out in Vegas, you'll know that Dale Carnegie, in this book specifically, has been a big influence in my life. That's actually my original book right there on my LinkedIn laptop that I'm using right now, that I purchased back in 1995 as a college graduation gift to myself. I still have that copy, still believe in everything the organization does. So, I've been working with the Dale Carnegie organization for a couple years now. It's something I'm passionate about and excited to help. So in that vein, let's get started. So today's agenda, I'm going to just talk a tiny bit about LinkedIn. Most of you understand what LinkedIn is. We're going to get into what's changed in the buying process. That's important because LinkedIn Social Selling Index was it's really a framework that is reacting to the changing B2B landscape that we've been seeing for years now and continues to evolve. At the end, open it up for questions, and if there's anything post-meeting today that you want to know or learn more about, like I said, feel free to email me, and we can get you answers and help there. But a little bit about LinkedIn. The membership is just, the growth is astronomical. I work at LinkedIn, but I'm more of a consumer of LinkedIn and a quote-unquote fan of LinkedIn than I am an employee of LinkedIn. I've been using it for more than a decade, and it's similar to, actually, if I think about it, very similar to how I look at Dale Carnegie. It's something that's really helped me in many different facets of my life. I'm still fascinated at the fact that we have over 10,000 employees around the world, and the fact that professionals are signing up to join LinkedIn at a rate of more than 2 new members every second. So massive growth, massive opportunity. And as many of you know, this is where professionals go. This is where they congregate online. And one of the best things that I've always loved about LinkedIn, and what I love about LinkedIn today, and will always, the content comes right from the individual. So it's information that they're putting out there. They're telling you about their work history. They're telling you things that they care about and value. They're telling you how to get in touch with them. So it's really, really great that it's self-sourced information. And business is going really well for LinkedIn. So it's a great place to be right now. As I alluded to earlier, though, the buyer's process has changed. And this is really important, right? And many of these things you're well aware of. You've seen this, whether you're a franchise owner or you're in sales, or both. You've probably seen that more and more people are now involved in the average business-to-business buying decision. Before I came to LinkedIn, I've been with LinkedIn about 3.5 years. Before I was with LinkedIn, I was a sales leader at ADP. And I started working for ADP back in the 90s, my first go-around with them. And at that point, we would go and meet with a business owner, and the business owner would make the decision whether or not to buy ADP's products and services. Occasionally, some other people would get involved in that decision, the people who would do payroll, for example, but for the most part, it was the business owner. Today, if you were to sell at ADP, you would have to meet with not only all of the C-level suite, you'd have to meet with finance, you'd have to meet with IT, you'd have to meet with operations, you would definitely have to meet with payroll, you would have to meet with HR, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's common. There's a lot more people now involved in the decision-making process. You probably see that on your side as well, right? So we can't rely on just one person or two people anymore. We have to multi-thread and get to know other folks inside of organizations. Secondly, buyers now, guess what? Going back to my story of working for ADP, we used to be the source of information. It used to be us that would be the messengers and deliver insights and deliver information about ourselves and our competitors. That's gone away. So folks are now looking online to understand what their options are. They're researching, when they talk about researching vendors, they're researching Dale Carnegie training of a certain geography, but you better believe they're also looking at you and they're looking at your team. If you're reaching out to somebody, highly likely that they're going to look at your LinkedIn profile. We're going to talk about that in more detail. But they're doing their own research, right? So we have to get ahead of that. And then lastly, people aren't picking up the phone like they used to. We're all very busy, right? I mean, sometimes it's hard to get back to friends and family. So imagine getting cold outreach from somebody. It's tough to get in front of somebody. And I'm sure we can all relate to this, right? And it just keeps getting harder and harder. So as a result of this changing dynamic, this fluid dynamic, LinkedIn created what's called a social selling index, which is the bulk of what we're going to talk about today. So this came out during my first year at LinkedIn, right around when I first started there. And I was fascinated by it, the fact that we were able to quantify activities on LinkedIn that resulted in revenue growth, right? So I'm a big fan of, getting involved myself in these types of statistics and data. So I wouldn't say a skeptic, but I wanted to see for myself if this was really valid. And I'll tell you, I've noticed for myself, but more importantly for the many hundreds of sellers that I've worked with in multiple industries, I can personally attest that the social selling index is something that I'm a big believer in as far as results that I've seen from people that I have worked directly with over the last few years. So what I mean by that is folks who work on the things and get better at their LinkedIn craft within this framework, what follows? Pipeline and revenue, which at the end of the day, that's what sales is. If you're curious and you want to know what your own score is, you can go to this link right here at the bottom. It's linkedin.com/sales/SSI. Okay, and again, I'll send you all this if you request the information, so you'll be able to have the link here. But you can check your own score, and it will give you the breakdown of where you're at in each of the four components of the social selling index, which I'll review right now. So the social selling index is a new number from 0 to 100, and each quadrant is worth 25 points. So the first quadrant is building strong relationships, right? So expanding your network to reach prospects and those who can introduce you to prospects. All right, so I'll give you a little sneak preview, and this is nothing that you don't already know, but one thing I'm going to emphasize near the end, you should be absolutely connecting with every single alumni of Dale Carnegie training everywhere, right? We know this. You're calling them, you're asking for referrals, but make sure you're connecting with them on LinkedIn. So it's not just your prospects, it's your clients, it's your channel partners, it's your chamber folks, it's actually friends, it's family, it's anybody that you know, right? And you'd be surprised sometimes where that business value can come from. But you need to connect with those folks on LinkedIn. Second piece is finding the right people, another 25 points. So prospecting efficiently with powerful search and research capabilities. There are different versions of LinkedIn that can, empower you to do different things, different advanced type of searches. But there's things you can do on free LinkedIn that can be very helpful as well. So there's little tips and tricks. We'll get into that. We'll touch on that in a little bit here. The third one, engaging with insights. We'll show some examples around this. This is probably it's tied for first with the next one. And the reason I love engaging with insights is because it's so controllable. You can post content, and Dale Carnegie, if there's an organization that has, super brand power, it's all of you, and you have content, you have lifetimes of content. A quote, a tidbit about a class, training, you have so much content, you just have to put it out there. All right, so engaging with insights and responding to and interacting with other folks on LinkedIn is really important. And then lastly, creating a professional brand, right? So we talked about this earlier where your profile needs to be, you need to be great. And I talked about this in Las Vegas with the group. You're Dale Carnegie. I'm such a big fan of the organization and what you all stand for. I wish, it's a sincere wish of mine that anybody and everybody associated with the Dale Carnegie organization had the best profile of all the more than 500 million people on LinkedIn. You're worthy of that. That is your brand. Your brand is stellar. But brand is one thing, and then personal brand is another thing. But at the end of the day, people are working with and buying from you and your team, right? They're not buying from a book. They're not buying from a building. It's you. So you really need to make sure that your brand is where you want it to be. So we'll touch base on that too. Just some interesting thoughts about sales professionals with high SSI. I alluded to this earlier, mentioned it, but our data shows that those who have higher SSI scores in sales are much more likely to go to club, and that's your standard President's Club type of deal, or Champions Dinner, whatever you want to call it, year-end award, and they get promoted faster. And we also see that there's a sort of line in the sand at that 70 score. Where folks that had a greater score than 70 have 45% more pipeline per quarter, and were more likely to hit quota when compared to lower scores. Now, you know how it is with data. You've got to have, there's always numbers. There's fluidity to this. I've seen people that have scores that are under 70 do phenomenally well. I've seen people that had scores of 90 fail because they don't know how to ask for an appointment. These are general guidelines. These are general principles that I can tell you that I've seen, again, in most of my, what I'll call pilots, when I work with companies and we test out Navigator, I get to work with all the folks that are on those pilots. And I have seen, as we look to track revenue, we do revenue attribution and pipeline attribution, 99 out of 100 times, the folks that are doing well in that area, their scores are growing, or they started off with high scores. So I'm a big believer in it, and it's shown to be really, really strong leading indicator. Okay, so let's start to get into the quadrants, okay? So let's start off with creating a professional brand. I love this stat, but think about it just from your own point of view. We're all consumers. We buy things, right? We look at things, and maybe we help make decisions on whether or not our companies buy things. We all know innately inside of ourselves, if we were to go to look at someone's profile on LinkedIn and they don't capitalize their name, or if they don't have a picture, or if it's just, you make impressions very quickly, right? And there's a lot of data on that. Conversely, if you've got a strong professional brand, people get excited and they want to work with you, right? Dare I say they like you, they're impressed by you, and these things happen quickly. These decisions happen quickly. It's human nature. The first thing that you need to think about when you think about your profile on LinkedIn, and not only your profile, but all the other things that you're doing on LinkedIn, you cannot be everything to everyone. You've got to pick your target market on LinkedIn and run towards that, all right? So we know the answer to this. Potential clients, that's who we're looking for on LinkedIn. Now, that's for sales. We're talking about sales. If I'm a franchise owner and I'm looking to hire my next generation of sales talent, maybe that's my target market at that moment. There can be seasonality to this concept, all right? but we're talking about sales today. So potential clients, right? So that's who you want to think about. And when you have that mindset, I find that things become simpler for folks. It's easier because then you think about LinkedIn as, think about it this way. If you were to walk into a Chamber of Commerce meeting with 100 people, right, and they were to pull up your LinkedIn profile, you weren't allowed to speak, but they just pulled up your LinkedIn profile, would it represent you in the way you want to be represented at that point, right? Think about if your top, let's say you've got a top 10 list of accounts that are going to drive the most revenue for you in fiscal 19, and these are strategic accounts, and we're targeting the CEO and the chief HR officer, and, you know, a couple other folks, and those are the main people. So those 40 people from those 10 companies, or 50 people from those 10 companies, if they were to look at your profile and make a judgment on you in 5 minutes, excuse me, 5 seconds, definitely not 5 minutes, what would it say? What would your profile say about you? So you have to think as if you're talking to them, and you've got to be able to do that quickly. So clearly, this is obvious with profile photos, right? We know this. We know that we have to not look like these folks at the top, right? When I first looked at this slide, I didn't realize right away that they were actually the same people on the bottom. It's kind of interesting, right? But if you do not have a professional headshot on LinkedIn, do not despair, right? You don't have to go to wherever you go get headshots done these days. I don't know, it used to be Sears or wherever, JCPenney or a photo studio. Use your phone. Just get a clear backdrop, have somebody take a headshot, that's fine. More than being like on the bottom, you don't want to be what's going on at the top here. All right, if I see, and I'm not talking about Dale Carnegie training, but if I see one more person with an arm cut off because someone has their arm around them and they cut them out and cropped it, you know, you got to be self-aware there. Okay. By the way, most of the profile photos that I've seen are very good, the high majority. But I've seen folks that are hiding their profile photo. No, you do not want to do that. All right, so one of the things that I'm not going to take 10 minutes to cover today, but I will give you instructions on how to do, is to make sure that your profile photo is visible to everybody. All right, this is somebody who I'm sure is a phenomenal human being and a pro at what they do, right? However, and they look, they're connected, 500 connections, but I can't see them. Right? And you know, when we think about that human connection and the things that Dale Carnegie is all about, you can't do this. So this is the one piece where I'd say, you know, clearly you want to have a great photo, but make sure it's visible by everybody. Don't make it where, hey, you can only see me if we're connected. You do not want to do that. All right? So it's tip number one. Tip number two, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. When you think about it, it becomes kind of obvious, but it's not obvious unless you're working with LinkedIn or someone's told you about this or you just innately get this stuff. Number two, write a compelling headline. Okay, so what do I mean by this? It's not your title. You don't want to put your title on your LinkedIn profile right underneath your photo. You want to tell everybody, what do you do? What is your value prop? When you think back to, you've got your top 10 accounts and you've got your decision makers at those top accounts looking at your profile. Real quick, they're going to look at your photo. They're going to see your title as performance consultant, okay, trainer, okay, partner, okay, vice president, okay, executive trainer, coach. These are titles. By the way, of course you're proud of your title. We all are. But when you think about LinkedIn as more of a communications tool and a marketing tool, think of instead about replacing your title with a headline. I know this first one is a little older. I love it though, the igniting workplace enthusiasm to achieve extraordinary results for our clients. I love that. Committed to being a professional resource and to adding value to local business communities. Passionate about connecting Dale Carnegie training to people seeking real transformation and impactful results. Driven to help others unlock their full potential. One of the coolest things that I experienced was after the Las Vegas conference, looking at the profiles of many of the folks that were in attendance and seeing them change their titles from franchise owner to something like this, from salesperson to something like this here, was very rewarding. And the feedback that I received was that it felt good to do that, and it felt Dale Carnegie-ish to do, and it is, right? So it's a great tip to do that. So this is just my, my next career. I leave LinkedIn, joining Dale Carnegie in some capacity, right? That wouldn't be a bad thing. I would love it, I'm sure. But this is probably what my profile would look like, something like this, right? So there's the headline, right? It's not title, okay? Here's the headshot. Listen, I know I have a face for radio, but at least there's none of that other stuff in there. The top part here, right? Leverage the new Dale Carnegie branding. Love, love, love the new branding. I've been talking to folks within the organization for years, and I just remember hearing about it. It's awesome. It looks great. Use it on LinkedIn. Use it on your profile. Many of you are already doing that. Highly recommend you do that. And then lastly, we're not going to get into detail on this in this call, but include a summary, right? It's an opportunity for you to let people know more about yourself and what you care about, all right? It's really, the last thing I'll say about the profile before we move on here is you're talking to people that you care about on your LinkedIn profile. So when I say that, what do I mean? Use proper grammar. I mean, you wouldn't speak in bullet points, would you? You wouldn't speak in complete sentences or sentence fragments, like something like, in your summary, work tirelessly for my clients, successful business owner and consultant, top award-winning performer. It would be something like, throughout my career, I've had the pleasure of working with many different types of companies in many different industries. Some of the things we've achieved together are ABC. So it's conversational, okay? Do that, do those things on the profile piece, and you'll see that you'll be looked at in more of a human fashion, which leads to better results. And again, 81% of buyers more likely to engage with a profile that looks sharp and speaks to them. Okay? All right, so let's move on here to finding the right people. This is the second quadrant, okay? And when I think about finding the right people, it's really what it means is making sure you're leveraging all of the ins and outs of LinkedIn to, let's face it, find prospects, right? Find people who can buy. Some of the vernacular that you will see inside of our SSI language online especially will allude to things like saving leads. Some of those things allude to Sales Navigator. Today is not about Sales Navigator, but I just want to let you know that when you're sitting there and you don't have Navigator and you wonder, well, how do you save leads? Some of these things allude to advanced or different versions of LinkedIn that were created just for sales. All right. Checking who's viewed your profile, that's a great one. And I'll also tell you, it's up to you to determine what setting you want to have your own profile on. In other words, you can either be fully visible or you can be private on LinkedIn. And sometimes when you're prospecting, which is what finding the right people is, you may choose to be in private mode, you may choose to be in public mode. A lot of people ask about this. What I will tell you is, if you've taken care of the things we just discussed in the profile piece, then you always want your profile to be out there, right? There's never a reason to be hidden at that point. If you're looking at a prospect's profile and they see that you've checked them out, that's not a bad thing. Maybe they'll actually click on your profile and see that powerful message that you crafted. See your great profile, see the great color that you put in there. But you should be doing that in reverse. Check who's viewed you, right? So one tip that I was thinking about that I thought would be really helpful, and I know some of you are using this to some degree, most are probably not. Leverage what's called Boolean modifiers in your searches, okay? Now here's the cool thing about this. It's not specific to LinkedIn. You can do this on Google, you can do this in any search engine, but it's very much underutilized. And every time I get into, pilots with companies and we start to explore this, it's very, very eye-opening. It just as important, it saves you a ton of time, right? And you'll get results that are much more efficient and, more focused on the types of people who you want to find. So in this example here, I typed in Dale Carnegie in quotes, all right? I wrote and Rutgers and sales. Why did I choose those? Because I love Dale Carnegie, I went to Rutgers, and I'm in sales. So in this case, I said, okay, let me find people that have similar words in their profiles as myself. Ironically, we've got my friend Radia here, who we'll talk about in a little more, in a few more minutes, about engaging with insights. But I could see I've got 315 results of those specific things. But if you're in, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and you're looking for CFO and HR and CEO and executive, right? Something like that. You can do this and you can actually search, get search results, and then you can refine by other parameters like geography. Big point on here. I know it's kind of, you're looking at it and saying, yeah, I know, see that and is capitalized. It has to be capitalized. That's a huge piece of that, okay? So as part of my deliverables to all of you, I will give you this tip sheet, right, as part of our follow-up. Got a question from the audience. Yeah, rtoland@linkedin.com is my email address. Boolean modifiers. So I just gave you a small example, but look at the other stuff you can do. You can put words in parentheses. That's crazy. You can use the word not. You could say, I had Dale Carnegie in quotes, and you could do or. So I liken this to grammar calculus, right? Grammatical calculus, grammar math. It will help you refine your results in a way that is much stronger than just searching randomly. And that this is whether you're on free LinkedIn, excuse me, Sales Navigator, or any other search engine that's out there. Okay? All right, so that's finding the right people. That's one tip. By the way, on a side note, we could probably take 10 to 12 hours to go through all of the 4 quadrants and every little piece. I wanted today to choose some ones that would be easy starters, easy way to get to know how to do these things. But there probably will be questions about other pieces. We'll take that at the end. But this is just one example of many things in the quadrant of finding the right people. All right? So going on to the next one here, engaging with insights. I mentioned earlier that I love this one. One thing I like about it a lot is that it's fun. I mean, it feels good to interact with people, doesn't it? I mean, that's who we are, right? That's who we are. That's who all of you are. You're people, right? You talk to people. You train them. You stand up in front of groups, and you discuss ways to transform, to be better, whatever your role is. I don't care if it's IT, if you're the top sales leader or the CEO. There's something that you have for them. This is one thing I love about your organization. You can help everybody and every company in the world, okay? Similar to LinkedIn, by the way, and that's where I love some of the parallels that our companies have together. But this is something that you should all be definitely doing and thinking about, engaging with insights on LinkedIn. And when I think about what we can talk about today, there's really a couple pieces here. So sharing valuable information with your network. Now, just to add another couple layers of thought around that, and when I say, quote, your network is your network, right? It's made of, hopefully alumni. It's made up of decision makers and business people in your geography. It's made up of coworkers, people you used to work with in the past. all kinds of folks. But there's a lot of power when somebody in your network engages with your content, because then their entire network will see that they've done that, right? So it's almost, there's a multiplier effect when you connect with somebody, and we're not doing it to be spammy, right? We're not trying to just get it out to, we want to be thoughtful about it, but the fact that when you push stuff out on LinkedIn, it travels. It goes places where you could never take it alone, just to the effect of people are connected to one another, and when they start to engage, it multiplies and goes out. So that's a big piece. Engaging with your network is a huge piece. All right, it's a huge piece because you want to be on both sides of that, right? It's almost like when you think about, it's okay that when we're in a conversation with somebody, you want to ask questions, you want them to talk, you want them to, be the star, right? You want to make them feel good. You want to keep asking questions, let them do the talk. People love that. That's how I love the book. From day one, it's all about getting people to talk. When you're engaged, when somebody puts something out on LinkedIn, they're talking. They're talking on LinkedIn. So you should engage with them on LinkedIn. They'll like it. It'll feel good. Create a relationship, right? And listen, at the end of the day, all of these things are, we're talking about social media and we're talking about content. Everything we do is geared towards driving revenue at the end of the day. Right? And this is a business, right? It's not a nonprofit. So I want you to understand that some of the things we talk about today and in the future will seem like they're up in the clouds and, hey, feel good, but it's all geared towards driving revenue. At the end of the day, you have to have that, otherwise you can't have a business. So I wanted to give you a real-world example of someone who I think does an incredible job with this inside of the Dale Carnegie organization. I don't know if she's on the call, and if she is, I don't want to embarrass her, although I don't think she can be embarrassed. And that's Roddy Clark, right? So she is out of the central southern New Jersey franchise under Anita. Before I get into some examples of what she's been doing, I just want to explain to you my relationship with her, okay? We have never met. We have never met before, but she and I engaged in a business conversation when I was at ADP about 4 years ago. All right, so here we are 4 years later, and our two companies are looking at doing some things together, and that's great. Forget about the companies for a second, though. Let's just talk about Radia. How I perceive her. I perceive her as someone who is she's got great LinkedIn game. She's got great Dale Carnegie skills. I've seen videos of her. I read her posts. I comment on her stuff. She's very inspirational to me, right? Gives me a great feeling about going into the Dale Carnegie office and meeting everybody. She has influenced how I perceive Dale Carnegie, mostly by what she's done on LinkedIn. We've had a couple conversations, not long, maybe 20 to 30 minutes total. We had, and this was recently, we talked years ago, but the brand that she has built up on LinkedIn makes me want to help her. That's crazy, right? Think about that. She's likable. She's competent. She puts stuff out that I like to consume. I want to do business with her. So I wanted to dive into what I mean in a little more detail. So the profile looks great, right? Great profile picture, the top, got the color, all that stuff. Now, Roddy, it can't be perfect. I might change a little bit here, although Director, Client Engagement, Corporate Trainer is pretty strong as the title goes. So that's great. Great content here, right, on the profile when you look at that. And again, I mentioned there's a lot of things we don't even have time to get into today. However, one thing I would say is when you look at putting multimedia on your profile, great addition. Great, right? I looked at this stuff, very impressed. But let's check out, go down to activity and let's see what she's been up to, right? And so, right, here's all activity. Let's see, something that she liked here. So she's engaging with others, right? She's sharing something that someone else put out there 20 minutes ago, right? Commented on this. All of these little things that she's doing, I bet don't take much time at all. You come into LinkedIn, you see something you like, you comment on it, you like it. By the way, huge tip on this, which is probably obvious but worth bearing and repeating again, authenticity is everything, not only in life but in business and definitely on LinkedIn, okay? If you're going to like something, here's what I tell people that I work with, and I tell this to people, that I work with at LinkedIn, people that I'm friends with, everybody. If you're going to like something, you better be prepared to answer the question from that person in 10 seconds, why did you like my post? If you can't answer the question why you like the post, don't like it. So you don't want to go on a like fest and just start clicking things. If you do like it, like it. If you don't, don't. If you're going to comment on something, make sure you've read the article, right? Make sure you've, and actually you can mention something inside of it, like really like point number 2 or point number 3, right? But it doesn't take a lot of time to do these great things. Look at that, thanking right here, it's great stuff. So that's one piece, right, in terms of all activity. And here's some posts. These are things that she has put out there. All right, here's that infographic we saw. There was a cool quote the other day. And there was one other one that I really liked. That one's from, so I mean, how can you not like that, right? Again, she's building a brand. Energy, everything is energy. It all begins with emotion. I see that, I want to run through the wall. I'm going to have a great day. So you really do have the ability to shape how people look at you and look at your organization by default, right? And Roddy, I'm not going to volunteer you to help people, but I would say if you want to know how the best does it, she's probably a great place to start. So great stuff there. Okay, so let's head back to the PowerPoint. And we talked about engaging with insights. It's important, right? I just want to go back. Actually, let me go back to the prior slide real quick. So see what she did? She shared valuable information, and she engaged with her network. Okay? One other piece on the sharing valuable information. How do you define valuable information? It means many things to many people. To me, inspirational content is valuable information. To me, giving me a tip on how I can manage up and to the left and to the right inside of my organization, that is valuable information. Giving me a tidbit about relationship selling from page 7 of your curriculum of that class, that is valuable information, right? Making me laugh, that's valuable information. There's nothing wrong with humor, right? So you can blend different things in there. You're uplifting somebody, whether it's their mood, right, their energy level, or you're making them smarter and better at what they do at their own job. Those are all valuable pieces. And engaging with your network, that just makes people feel good. It makes you likable, right? That helps move things along really well. The last piece here, so building strong relationships, okay? I mean, talk about like alignment with Dale Carnegie. It's scary how aligned the two companies are. Connecting with contacts, focusing on decision makers, engaging with your network. So looking at this from a sales standpoint, right, to focus on decision makers, that makes sense. Engaging with your network, we talked about that. I want to spend a little time to talk about connecting with contacts. Connect with your network and with prospects after introductions. All right, so a couple things. You don't want to connect with everybody and anybody and just connect. All right, that doesn't help you. Like when you think about your network, you want to think about high quality versus quantity. If you have quality and quantity, that's the best, right? But quality beats quantity any day. Now, having said that, there's no hard line in the sand that says you're going to fail if you just connected with 5,000 people on LinkedIn and you don't know them, right? I know people have done that. The sky is not going to fall. Your laptop is not going to explode. Everything will be fine, right? But the real essence of success with LinkedIn when it comes to social selling is talking to people in a meaningful way. What I mean by that is, let's say I were to find a prospect on LinkedIn, right? And I noticed that one of my first degree connections on LinkedIn was connected to that individual. If I actually know the common connection and can actually ask for a favor or can ask for a referral, that's a great thing. That's what it's all about, and that's where the magic stuff happens. If I don't know that person and I just connected with them randomly, it's a lot harder to ask for a referral, isn't it? So think about that when you're connecting with folks. All right, you want to make sure that if you can, connect with people that you know. And how do you define people you know? Well, if you have a meeting with somebody tomorrow scheduled, you can connect with them today. If you had a meeting with somebody yesterday, you can connect with them today. Right? So if you've already engaged or you have something going on in the future with that person, you can connect on LinkedIn. If you met them before at a conference, maybe you have a stack of business cards, maybe you have a Rolodex in your home office. Find those people on LinkedIn and connect with them. All of those scenarios, though, have one small caveat. Personalize your introduction. Okay? Personalize your introduction to everybody you connect with, right? Within reason. What I mean by within reason is, if you were to connect with me today, I don't mind that you don't personalize it. All right? We've just had a conference call. You signed up for this. It's obvious, we're going to connect. That's okay. Although I wouldn't mind a personal note. That's great. It always makes you feel good, right? But especially if you don't really know the person that well, or if it's a recommendation from a friend, like, hey, you should connect with Sally over here. So in my introduction, I just might say, hey, Sally, Joan recommended we connect on LinkedIn, something like that. Or, definitely if you're in a B2B type of environment, thank you for meeting yesterday. Really appreciated your time. Send the invite. Or if you're meeting tomorrow, looking forward to meeting you tomorrow. I had a huge on-site in New York City last week with a big prospect. And, we had some folks coming into the meeting that I had not met yet, but they were pretty high up decision makers. We were not connected on LinkedIn. But I sent them all notes and said, really looking forward to having you and the team coming into New York City next week. Look forward to the meeting. Send. And they accepted, and they wrote back, looking forward to meeting too. So that was just, and that felt good, because by the time they got there, we were connected. I was able to see other people we had in common and things of that nature. I mentioned this before, and it's worth talking about again. If you're not connecting with every single alumni in your classes, it's a big miss, all right? Especially if you have Navigator, if you have Sales Navigator, there's something you can do inside of Navigator where you can very quickly and easily pull up anybody's network and see very quickly if they know any decision makers in your targeted accounts. All right, so for example, if I have a class, we just finished, we graduated, and I saved, we've got in this picture 9 people, right? So 9 people I connected with, and then next week, I'm not sure what your exact protocol is, but mine, I actually now that I think about it, and this is on the fly thinking here, I would connect with them before they graduated. I would know who they knew before they left the building, right? There's no reason not to do that. No reason. I think that would be actually a great idea, something we could work on together as a group. How do we do this? Why can't we get referrals from them before they leave? Why can't we have an exit interview? And when we do that, why can't we say, I know we're connected on LinkedIn. I saw you were connected to these 5 HR folks at these 5 different companies. Just so happens, Roddy Farr is trying to get into those accounts, and it would be so great if we could have an introduction. Would you mind doing that? Absolutely. As they're getting their certificate, absolutely, be happy to do that. Of course I'd be happy to do that for you, but you can't see anything unless you're connected to them. You won't know anything, you won't see anything, so that's the secret. You want to connect with everybody in your classes for sure, all right? with that, I'm going to end the piece on the 4 quadrants of SSI, and I'm going to ask the group, and Cheryl, I don't know if you've got the ability to open this up or how you want to do this, but who has the first question?
I do, and actually there were a couple questions that got keyed in, so I'll start there if that's all right. The first one was on the photo of yourself. If you have black and white photos of yourself, is that preferable to have in the header versus generic hero photos?
So is the question black and white versus color?
Karen, you are on the line. I am going to unmute you if you would like to provide clarification to the group. Oh, you're self-muted. If you'd like to unmute your line. Or
yes.
if you want to type it in. Oh, great. Thanks, Karen.
Sure. No, the question is in the header, you know, using images of yourself, perhaps, if you have some quality black and white so it stays with our brand, versus having an image of someone that's not you. It just feels a little awkward to have a single female hero image that's not me in that header, but maybe I'm overthinking it. So that's my question.
Oh, that's a great question. Love that question, and I totally get where you're coming from. It's been interesting as I've been immersing myself in Dale Carnegie's branding, how I think about it and how I, you know, put different things in PowerPoints I've been creating or whatnot. I think so this is my personal opinion on this. I don't have any great data to point to, but just experience. In the case of Dale Carnegie branding, I think it's fine to do that. To have because you're including people in your branding very prominently. And I think when you show someone that's not you, it's just, you know, it's kind of sending a message of, hey, we work with folks, right? Of all shapes, sizes, colors, genders, doesn't matter. We're out there. And they're usually doing some kind of, there's some emotion that's usually evoked from the pictures of the people that I see on your website and in other places. So I think it's great, but when in doubt, you don't need to, you can take people out. It's really personal preference on that. As far as black and white versus color, it's purely what your preference is. So that just falls into the, you know, style, personal style, and going into profile photos. I've seen, you know, people have sepia, black and white, color. Some people have cartoon pictures of themselves, whatever. But as long as it's professional, I think is the key. And one other thing too, it's kind of a neat little extra tip. There's a website called photofeeler.com, photofeeler, PHOTOFEELER.com. And you can submit your profile picture and people will give you feedback on it. I've used it before and I found it fascinating. It's not a place for folks to be negative. It's for people like all of us to go and rank people's photos on professionalism, likability, things like that. It's pretty good. I discovered some things I didn't realize I was doing wrong in prior profile pictures. I was too far away, the lighting wasn't good, things like that. So hopefully I answered your question on that. It's definitely more art than science on that top header piece. But my opinion is your branding includes people. I would be fine with it, but it's also fine if you want to not include that. Personal preference kind of thing.
Thank you, Rich. And Karen, maybe you can jump back in and help with this. There is a question from the group on where you can grab that Dale Carnegie horizontal artwork from that you saw, those hero images. I believe they're on Carnegie Connect. Is that correct?
Yes, it's in Carnegie Connect under sales and marketing. They just actually redid the organization of the sales and marketing material, and there is now a section for social material, social media images. So the LinkedIn banners are there.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. I'm excited about that. That makes it so easy for everybody because otherwise you had to kind of grab your own image or use Photoshop. That's really great. Great to hear.
And just to clarify, Rich, these are all tips for individual profiles, correct? Not company or business accounts?
So you're asking about the header for the profile versus the landing page for the actual business, the entity?
I think the question is just on your tips in general, the title and all that kind of stuff. Those are just tips for individual profiles, not necessarily for like a corporate account.
Yeah, exactly right. This is for your individual profile that represents you as a person on LinkedIn, regardless of title or role. But to your point, there's a lot of other stuff that, you know, I think we'll get to. When I say we, LinkedIn and Dale Carnegie will get to, in terms of how we work together to help you all optimize things like landing pages for your unique business that each of you has if you're a franchise owner, how to leverage that, how to do a lot of pieces there. And if that's an area of interest, we can definitely fast track that.
Wonderful. And Rich, there is a question about the difference between the premium and the free LinkedIn version, and if you recommend premium. I know there's probably a lot of different facets. Can you maybe do a high-level bullets of what the extra benefits for the premium version are?
Yeah, I can do that. So look at it this way. There's free LinkedIn or classic LinkedIn, whatever you want to call it, that everybody's on. And then there's versions of LinkedIn that people or companies pay for. All right. On the individual side, on the consumer side, we call that premium as an umbrella statement, premium. So individual folks can buy a premium version of LinkedIn. There are different types of premium accounts. All right, there's one for job seekers, there's one for learning, there's one for sales, et cetera, et cetera. So underneath that umbrella, there's one called Sales Navigator, and this is for an individual. Again, I'm only talking about individuals buying their, an upgrade. If you are in sales or if you're interested in growing revenue for your company because you're a business owner, the online consumer version of Sales Navigator as a standalone premium option makes the most sense because it's optimized for driving revenue. If you're hunting for a job and you're a job seeker, that version doesn't make sense. It's the recruiter, the job hunter one makes the most sense. So to take a step back, if you're thinking about driving revenue as a key driver of why you want to use LinkedIn, you really have two choices as an individual, in my opinion. This is what I tell my friends. Either the free or Sales Navigator online. So the price difference between the other premium versions of LinkedIn and Sales Navigator is not that much. So all things being equal, the online version of Sales Navigator has everything you would need. The differences between Sales Navigator and free LinkedIn are things like InMail. You'd have the ability to reach out to people without being connected to them, right? And so you can actually prospect on LinkedIn, right? Sales Navigator allows you to, it's actually a whole separate version of LinkedIn that many of you or your teammates are already using. It allows you to do advanced targeting and searches that are, clearly much more efficient, but also allow you to do things that you're unable to do on free LinkedIn. So before, when I showed that Boolean search, there's still a lot of limitations to what you can do on free LinkedIn. With Sales Navigator, it's unlimited in terms of the amount of searching and the types of searching that you can do, right? So there's some other benefits, like there's a whole grid of things that are involved. But with any premium product, you can try it free for 30 days as a consumer and test it out and see if it makes sense for you. And then if you do like it, then you can buy it on a month-to-month basis going forward. The other scenario that's out there is that organizations and entities will purchase Navigator for themselves or on behalf of their stakeholders. And we're looking at that for the Dale Carnegie organization across the board. So we're talking about doing a pilot right now for that. So we're exploring if that will help drive revenue, help you. I think personally, if we're talking about franchise ownership here, one of the things that we haven't talked a lot about is how we can help you attract and retain and find talent on LinkedIn. You can use Navigator to do that as well. So big picture, I don't want to just keep droning on about the features and functionality differences, but there is a huge, huge difference between the premium products and the free versions, the free version of LinkedIn. And for what I know about LinkedIn, if you care about sales and marketing and revenue, Sales Navigator is the way to go. Whether it's, again, one-to-one consumer or a company. And actually, it's the only thing a company could buy on a premium type of agreement.
And Rich, do you know if Sales Navigator integrates with Salesforce?
It is awesome. That integration is incredible. So, yeah, keep in mind, I say this, I realize I work for LinkedIn, and this is my job, but I was a client. I came from ADP. We had the Salesforce integration. I've been on both sides, and we use it. I use it every day, and we have Salesforce. It does integrate with Salesforce.com. A couple examples of things. When you're inside of Salesforce.com, you'll receive right there insights about the contacts that you're looking at in Salesforce.com. When you go to a company page inside of Salesforce.com, you see who knows who. Does anyone else in the organization know the key decision makers here? Have they published any articles? What are they up to? Have they published quarterly results? Are they growing? Are they talking about training? That all exists inside of Salesforce.com. When I'm on Navigator, it allows me to do things like search for prospects who are not in my CRM. So if I were to join Anita's team here in New Jersey, I might say, all right, I want to see everybody within a 50-mile radius of this training facility who matches a certain criteria of HR, C-level, or has the word training in their title, but not in my Salesforce.com. Click a button, I have 1,000 net new people, right? There's a lot of other cool things that it does. For example, if I were to send an email, it gets synced back into Salesforce.com. If I were to write a note about a prospect, it gets synced into Salesforce.com. It's really, really good. And one reason I'm excited about, take away the fact that I love the organization and that, I believe in what you all do from a pure business standpoint, really was excited to hear that you use Salesforce.com because that does add a lot of value. Now, to be clear, I'm talking about an enterprise relationship for the CRM sync is what we call it. It's not available off the shelf as a consumer, but it is something that we've been talking about at the corporate level. If we do a pilot, would love to see that as part of the pilot.
Wonderful. Thank you for that explanation, Rich.
Sure. I should change this slide to the next question. Who has the next question?
There is a question actually from Radia. She also wanted to let you know she recently changed her title, so thank you for that tip. The question's on privacy. In the future with a partnership, since it's our own personal account, how does that work, or is there a side conversation that could be had on that?
I don't fully understand the question. So I'm going to try and interpret it. Is the question, if the company is engaged in a partnership, how does that impact the personal account?
Radia, yes.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, LinkedIn is the members first, right? So everything we do, every decision that is made from our CEO, Jeff Weiner, down to, everyone else, is all about members first. Every single thing we do is about members first. There's nothing gets degraded, nothing goes away, nothing gets shared from what you do as a member on LinkedIn based on any subscription that your employer buys for you. So it's unique in that you're able to, through these advanced tools, you're able to leverage your personal network, but that's your personal network. That's yours, right? And no one can take that from you. And in fact, you have all the same rights as you would without being a premium member through your company. So can get into more detail on that, but the big news, the headline on that is that there's nothing to worry about there at all. It is always a slight concern for people, some more than others, but it's always addressed to everyone's satisfaction. I've never had a problem with it.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Sure.
Are there any more questions? Please feel free to type them in or raise your hand and I can unmute your line. If not, we have hit our hour. It looks like that is all I see. I know that we will make Rich's email address public and provided to everyone if you have any follow-up questions and need to reach out. And he will be able to supply this presentation to those organizations.
Great, and I want to thank everybody for coming in today. Wish you the best of luck with everything you're doing. I believe we're closing out a fiscal, right? So good luck closing strong, and excited for the new fiscal coming right around the corner. And hey, and also have a great weekend. Take a little time to enjoy yourself, your family, and then I guess come back into a new year, right? It's an exciting time. So appreciate everybody coming in and look forward to doing more of these.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.